he would reference all of these things as sort of a little in-joke, read the word Necronomicon in one story.
It's just like a really strange build-up for a huge mythos built after he started.
Hello and welcome to Drawn from Myth, episode 4. My name is Kim Diaz Holm, also called Den Unge Herr Holm, and I'm an artist from Bergen, Norway. And with me I have my co-host,
Lukas Wozny, and I'm a technician and an anthropologist of culture.
And together we are going to be exploring some myth and modern myth while I try to draw something. And that's the whole point of this show or podcast or whatever it is, to talk about stuff that we find interesting, which is almost always drawn from myth in some sense, while I draw. And the thing is that today I wanted to start with one of my favorite topics, something to do with the writer H.P. Lovecraft, because Lovecraft is probably my favorite author and one of my big artistic inspirations. And there are not a lot of topics that I would claim to have any sort of expertise in, but Lovecraft, I think I do. I've read an insane amount of his work and his letters and the biographies around him, and also a lot of the academic discussion around him. And I've worked with his literature many times. So I released the graphic novel adaptation of Pickman's Model back in 2011, I think. And that was nominated for Best Comic of the Year in Norway.
And I have.
And you have you have it. I sold it to you.
Funny stuff. One of two, like I met Kim first time when he was painting alive, like in 2014 on Blastfest. And I saw him in garage when he was selling that one particular comic book. I couldn't buy it at the time, and he couldn't sell it to me because there was some whatever. And in 2023, 4, we met again. I said, I want to have that comic.
Yeah.
I really want to have that comic. And by the way, this is one of the best things from related to H.P. Lovecraft I have, and it's not by H.P. Lovecraft, it's by Kim.
Yeah. And that was actually that meeting when I sold you my Lovecraft adaptation and hand-delivered it. Was the first time when we sat down and talked a little bit about archaeology and anthropology and mythology, and about you also doing some podcasts.
As a technician.
And that was when sort of the idea of doing this was sparked in my head. Maybe.
Was the Lovecraft who bind us together?
Yes, it was Lovecraft that bind us together, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But first, my history with Lovecraft doesn't end with my Pickman's Model adaptation, because I also have done some densely illustrated versions of some of his prose poems for very short stories. one called Nyarlathotep, and then Memory, and Ex-Oblivion, and What the Moon Brings. And those stories I also performed with artist and musician Kostin Kieranu at Inferno a few years back. And in addition to all of this, I've touched on, I've written an article about Lovecraft for a Norwegian magazine. I've written so many blog posts about Lovecraft, and I've spent way too much of my life thinking about Lovecraft and his life and his work and his fiction. And so I thought, when we're doing a show about drawing from myth, then Lovecraft has to be one of the topics that we come back to again and again. It's an evergreen topic for me. And that is why it's lovely that... What's your relationship to Lovecraft, Lukas?
Complicated.
Actually, it seemed kind of easy.
No, it's not easy, because my first connection to Lovecraft was the 90s role-playing game, Call of Cthulhu, released by Chaosium, as you just reminded me today. And this was in like 1920s. And it, of course, it wasn't written by Lovecraft. It was his interpretation of his myth, and anyone else after his death who added to that myth, or started it, actually.
Yeah, but
let's go that.
Let's skip that.
Let's skip that.
Let's just
so that was this.
But let me cut through and just ask you.
I can't stand what he's writing. I just can't. It's just so silly for me.
You hate Lovecraft.
No, I hate his writings.
You hate his writings.
Yes, I don't like.
When did you last try to read Lovecraft?
On my own, just because I wanted. It was the first half of the 10th of 21st century. So around more than 10 years ago. Yeah, the last time. And I failed because it was boring for me. And before that, because of the role-playing game, I tried to read it. Because, okay, I have the game, I have the goods. Now let's go to the source and try to read it. And I just couldn't. His delivery of how he is writing, not about what, that's a different story. How he's writing for me is just, no, it's boring. It's totally boring. It was like a 15-year-old tried to write something, and not to offend any 15-year-olds, condemn it, I mean like average 15-year-old try to deliver our really good prose, and it just failed. And okay. I know, I just, which is funny because I read Robert E. Howard at the same time, with Conant,
Robert
and his
E. Howard,
with his fiction, which is as well pulp fiction, and I liked it. I think that what Lovecraft did with his topics was way above Robert E. Howard, because Robert E. Howard, for me, is pure entertainment. Pure entertainment, from the writing to the topics, everything. Lovecraft was a bit more, but I just couldn't stand how he was writing. That's my stand on it. That's why I'm here with you, because you have a total different, and I think it's your jam, let's say.
Yeah. Do you remember what stories you tried to read?
I read it in Polish. It was The Color Out of Space, Call of Cthulhu. And Call of Cthulhu I actually read last time, over 10 years ago. That was one of the two, actually, stories I read. Pigman Model, which I read, and had your comic. And that would... Wait, there was something about a house which...
The Strange High House in the Mist, or is it?
No.
No, so it's later. It is. I know the story.
Wait. I read as well. I tried to read The Mountains of Madness. I couldn't.
Yeah.
And I think that is all, because everything else is just what he wrote about him, movies about him. I have games. I have Arkham Asylum and all of things. So no, that's all. That's all. I just couldn't go over it. So sorry.
And specifically, what is it that ticks you off when you start reading it?
His style.
His style. Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. What about his style?
For me, it's a boomer style. That's what I would say now.
Boomer.
Yeah, fuck no, man, no. I just can't go over it. No.
Yeah.
No. Not boomer. Maybe it's very simplified. It's describing a lot of things which I don't need a description of. That's why your comic worked, because you describe with picture and he was describing with words. And for me, his word description wasn't doing it. There you go.
Yeah. So, but you actually do like Lovecraft's mythos, the mythos.
Yes. Oh, what he created is amazing. Although he created very little, everything else is just the topic of the top of the iceberg. Everything else was added to it. But how he started and the ideas he had was amazing for me. Mm-hmm. Because he touched something which was like in the spirit of the age he was growing up and writing, right?
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
It was a bit of different take of it. It was all the occultists we had in the 20s and later, and before the First World War, right? Mm-hmm. From the Romantic era to the New Europe movement. Young Europe, sorry. So from Szymanski and Baudelaire and everything, all of this, like Return of the Occultism and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And he was taking a bit of a different take on it, with the madness and the cosmic forces. And it's just like a really strange build-up for a huge mythos built after he started.
Mm-hmm. So that's a very important point. That the whole idea of a Cthulhu mythos, that doesn't come from Lovecraft himself. He actually described what he was doing with a sort of connected universe, more jokingly, as Yog Sotho 3. So it is the creation of this cross-fiction universe was more of a little inside joke to him, so that he would reference his own stories, and he would reference stories and ideas from a lot of his friends, like Robert E. Howard and Robert Bloch and Clark Ashton Smith, and he would reference all of these things as sort of a little in-joke that had the added effect at the time that because people read the word Necronomicon in one story and then read it again in an unconnected story, people started believing, ooh, this must be a real book.
I have it at home, by the way.
Yeah, that's sort of the in-joke that created this idea that Necronomicon is a real book, and why it's been published so many times. But I think the point of this episode sort of has to be to figure out how to give you a good entryway to try to read Lovecraft again.
Because I feel like you are overqualified and I'm totally not qualified to talk about it all.
And the problem that most people will have when they pick up a Lovecraft collection is that they very seldomly differentiate all the different kinds of Lovecraft there is. Because Lovecraft started... First, let us just put one thing to rest. We all know about Lovecraft's racism, which was...
sadly, I think.
It was a very direct and concrete thing, and people try to brush it off by saying that, yeah, it was a racist time. Yes, it was a racist time, but like with so many other things, Lovecraft was peculiar for his time, and his type of racism was peculiar for his time, not necessarily more vile or intense, or it was bad, but not necessarily more bad than the KKK at the time, or any other thing.
But as far as I know, he didn't lynch anyone.
He didn't lynch anyone. He did have support and then not so much support lynchings, but it was all very abstract for him because he was way in the north of the United States.
Yeah.
But the point is, if you're going to read Lovecraft, it's not like you can separate the artist from the art and then not have to think about the racism, because the racism is in the stories. There are very few Lovecraft stories with no racist things. That it's always there. Sometimes it is deeply connected to his fear of interbreeding and hybridization.
Yeah.
And that's where the fish people come in, and that's where some of the more interesting aspects of his racism also comes in. But other places, it's just how he describes people of other races. And at different points in his life, other races included things like Norwegians, which he looked very much down upon. Polish people, of course, he looked down upon.
Germans?
No, Germans he just didn't like, but he looked at them as equals, but just not necessarily going along good with Anglo-Saxons. And all of this was also driven by this fear that he might have something different in his bloodline. Like he might even have some Welsh.
Oh my God!
Oh my God!
Terrible!
Terrible. And it's easy to make fun of these things, but it is for a modern reader. It should be a problem. And if it's not a problem when you're reading Lovecraft, you're either not reading him closely enough, or you're choosing to ignore it for other reasons. Let's say other reasons.
Yeah.
So because it is always there, you can't separate it because it's in the art.
Yeah.
And then there is another problem, which is the problem of genre. Because Lovecraft, what he published during his lifetime was almost exclusively published in pulp magazines.
Like Weird Tales, I think, wasn't it?
Weird Tales and a few others, and also in fanzines, or amateur journalism, as it was called, because that was what called him to writing, was the amateur journalism. And Lovecraft fell in love with the idea of amateur writing and amateur journalism, because that fit his idea about art. Art was something sacred that should be, and he was atheist, so sacred not in a metaphysical sense, but in sense of this was
cultural, maybe like
culturally, it was something that should only be done for the noblest of of reasons. It was thinking at a high level, and it should never be done for anything as lowly as earning money.
Yeah.
But the only places that would accept his work, and he was sort of almost pressured into submitting his work. And he did enjoy reading the pulps, and he also always complained that the pulps were influencing his style.
Mm-hmm.
And the only place that would publish him were the pulps. And after a while, when there was no money, that meant he was dependent on releasing things in the pulps. And that was how he survived, that together with ghostwriting and revisions and small stuff like that, kept him barely alive until he died at age 47 of stomach cancer, maybe related to living on canned food and ice cream for years. But the first part of his writing, his adult writing, he is writing these sort of horror-like or fantasy-like homages to his heroes, like Edgar Allan Poe and Algernon Blackwood and Lord Dunsany and all of these different authors, some of which, like Robert W. Chambers, who wrote The Yellow Sign and The King in Yellow.
Which I read that one, by the way.
Yeah. The only reason why we remember that book today is because Lovecraft wrote so highly about it in his essay, Supernatural Horror in Literature. So he's a part of preserving that type of literature. And his early writing is mostly sort of either Gothic horror, borrowing from Edgar Allan Poe, or more dreamlike fantasies, borrowing from Lord Dunsany. And there are small glimmers of Lovecraft in there, and they can be beautiful. And some of the most beautiful prose he wrote is in those stories. But he's a man who in the 20s were speaking really old-fashioned like, and he's writing even more old-fashioned like.
There you go. I told you,
Yep.
Boomer.
Yeah.
Although he was from before Boomer generation, but you know what I mean.
Now, when these collections of Lovecraft stuff are published, these tales are often published together with the tales that he wrote for magazines, that he wrote on spec. So a story like Herbert West Reanimator, which is a parody of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, written on spec by commission for a magazine, who were tired of him writing all that weird Lovecraft stuff. So why don't you write something with a little bit more shock and horror and gore and stuff? And that was him trying to give the middle finger to them and do it. And people read it as if it's a proper Lovecraft story, because Lovecraft was so bad at writing parody that you don't see the humor there. It's not there. It seems like a very Lovecraftian story, but it's him trying to write a parody. Same with The Lurking Fear. Same with a few other later stories. And these are published with the major tales, or major early tales. And then from 1926 and on, you have the big Lovecraftian fiction. That starts with tales like Pickman's Model, which is his final sort of goodbye to Poe, in a sense, and Call of Cthulhu, which sort of establishes the Lovecraftian canon, in a sense.
Yeah.
And it's the first big hint of this hidden mythology that, you know, he didn't write himself, because he's one of his weaknesses as an author is that he loved dreaming up all that stuff with ancient civilizations and aliens from other planets, and he thought it was really fun to dream up that stuff, but it didn't really fit into what he was trying to write, because he was trying to write something that was almost incomprehensible and not understandable. But then he layers on exposition about lost civilizations in detail that the characters would never know. So there is this naivety that you have even in the best Lovecraft stories that is really stupid and also really, really beautiful.
That might be the thing that actually is pushing me away.
Yeah,
that naivety.
There is a naivety there. And the thing is, with the big stories, with the post-1926 stories, like Color Out of Space, like At the Mountains of Madness, what Lovecraft is trying to do is very different from sort of the pulp of a Robert E. Howard. Robert E. Howard was trying to be exciting. Every word of a Robert E. Howard story is like a hammer.
Oh, yeah.
It punches straight to the point. That's not the point that Lovecraft is trying to do. Lovecraft named what he was trying to do weird fiction. And for him, the point of weird fiction was, it was not the drama, it was not the excitement, the thrill, it wasn't the weird ideas even. It was trying to build a single mood through a story and just have that mood go slowly towards the climax. And then the climax comes, and it's almost always nothing, because you can't go any further. The climax is just getting into that mood. So a lot of Lovecraft stories end with something that seems like a plot twist ending, like Pickman's Model ends with the narrator showing a picture of a photograph of life of one of the ghouls. And that seems like the worst plot twist ever. Because in the beginning of the story, he tells you that they are real, and this is what they are, and this is what you can expect. And then it ends with, but they are real. That's not a plot twist. That's not a shock and horror ending. The point of those endings is just the story has to end somewhere. And it just ends with the same statement as they started, that this is real, that this weird feeling he has hopefully gotten you into, this dream-like, they can be full of horror or of awe or mystery, that this is real, this is inescapable. You can't wake up from this.
Was the same kind of vibe in Call of Cthulhu as well, because I remember it started with the dreams, and then he took a ship and tried to find the sunken city.
Yeah, you're misremembering a little, but not too much. So that's
because
we can
that was
work
a long
with that.
time. Yeah. Because that's what I remember. Kind of, it started with a dream, or like in something in his mind on the main character for the Call of Cthulhu, and then I remember it was a ship, and he tried to find something.
Yeah. We'll not go through all of the stories. We're just going to look for somewhere for you to begin your new Lovecraft journey.
That's gonna be hard.
And the problem is, if you start with Call of Cthulhu, that's an uneven tale because it ebbs and flows, and it has too much of the naive exposition, and it has too many different chapters to really create that singular mood that he was trying to. What it does have is one of the best openings in literature, just the opening passage. The most merciful thing in the world, I think, is our human inability to correlate. I'm falling off now, but I should know it by heart.
So where should I start?
Beautiful opening. And I think something like The Color Out of Space is also probably the closest he ever came to writing a true weird fiction tale, where everything is just this subtle, horrible build-up of something weird and horrible that's sucking the life out of everything. And it's such a fantastic tale because first time I read it, I was pissed off.
Why?
Because it was supposed to be about a story, about a color that humans have never seen before. And he used the word purplish. So he described it as purple-like.
But we saw purple.
But we see purple. And I've met others that have had this exact same experience. The only problem is he doesn't use the word purplish or purple or anything like that. He's very careful to not use those words. But I put that word in because that was the only way I could try to imagine what he was writing, was imagining that color out of space having some sort of color. So I entered the word in my imagination.
It's like the
and I
apple
was
in
pissed off with it until I read it again and saw that, no, it's not there. And then I was like, ooh, now I'm getting close to that feeling, or that weird feeling.
So it's like apple in Eden. There was no apple in Eden.
Yeah.
There was a fruit.
I think that what you are describing as well is you're describing that you have problems with his words and his prose.
With the delivery of the story.
Yeah, and with very few exceptions, the delivery of a story, both before he found his niche of weird fiction and after, is going to be very slow build-up descriptions. It's going to be inner monologue. It's going to be what the person is thinking as they're narrating or experiencing. There isn't going to be any exciting things, nothing to grab you, nothing to hook you. The hooks are sort of off limits for Lovecraft.
But that's not the problem. The problem is it's.
Yeah, but the problem, I understand. It is something to do with the language and how he describes things.
Yeah.
And I think that the best way, probably, to start for you, and let's give you homework until next time.
That's gonna be great.
Great.
Yeah.
I think we need to start you with something from that early period of Lovecraft, where he was trying to be Poe, where he was trying to be Lord Dunsany or Arthur Machen, or Robert W. Chambers. But something that is short and easier to get, because it is more reminiscent of other stuff. So in a lot of these stories, he writes in a sort of prose where he's closer to classical verbose fiction, and in these tales he can get a little bit too flowery with his adverbs. He can describe things a little too much, with a little too many words. He actually stops doing that later, because his adverbs become very specific after a while. Mm-hmm. So in Call of Cthulhu or At the Mountains of Madness, when he's describing something with two different adjectives, it was a purplish and flowery nose. Then those two adjectives are there for a reason. Mm-hmm. They're not there to be poetic. They're there so that he can slowly start twisting the adjectives to make them more and more conflicting, and to make whatever you are reading more and more impossible, gradually impossible to imagine. That's the thing with the weird, to make it finally impossible to imagine, to get your mind close to imagining something impossible.
So what is the first?
I think we have a few different alternatives. Mm-hmm. And these are more flowery, the prose is more purplish. You could start with something like Dagon, which is very short and has the underpinnings of... It's the first one that has some sort of the hint of a Lovecraftian mythos. It has undersea civilization, it has fish people, it has big monster.
Yeah, what I know from games.
Yeah, you could start with something like The Outsider, which is a very Poe-like tale, which is, has a slight hint of that existential dread that you get later, but it also is a pretty naive little story. It's fun, but it's not. I love it, but I think what we'll have you do is start with the music of Eric Sun, which is possibly his most Poe-like story, but it also has this very weird, dreamlike quality, and also very well written, and not really a horror story, but something weird about it. It doesn't have the sci-fi realism that he was trying for later. It's more of a weird dream-esque thing, but it's short, and it's quite unlike much else. And one of the things you said to me was that you tried to read these as audiobooks,
Yeah.
don't do that.
Don't.
The prose is written to
Be read.
be read. This was one of the most prolific letter writers ever. He wrote at least 70,000 letters in his life. Some of them were up to 70 pages long. Reading text was a primary way of communication for him. They are written to be read. When you've read them a couple of times, you can do the audiobook as well. But yeah, let's come back in a little while and have an episode about the music of Eric Sand, and if that manages to sort of lighten your Lovecraft hatred a little bit.
You're giving the production some ideas for future, right?
Yes.
Okay. Episode, maybe. Music of Eric Sand. There you go.
And it doesn't even have much of a monster.
Oh no! What do you gonna draw?
I'm going to draw the music of Eric Sand, of course.
Oh yeah. What do you have there, by the way?
I don't know. It is...
Looks like roots coming from
I think
the
it's
stones.
roots or tentacles.
Yeah, that would be more Cthulhu. Fish.
Coming from the cosmos
That definitely.
and grabbing the character. And I don't know. I don't know what it is. Hopefully it's a little bit weird. And that's the point. The point isn't the horror. It isn't the monster. It's that slight weird feeling
Something's
of
off.
dread and awe that you experience when you think about how fucking insane it is that anything exists at all. That's the weird that Lovecraft was going for, I think, and that's the weird we're going for.
Yeah, I like weird.
Yeah, so, yes, the music of Eric Sand. Read it. Till next time.
I will.
And that was this episode of Drawn from Myth, I think.
A bit different.
A
More
bit
like
different.
introductionary to...
Yeah, and I'd love to hear what you think about the music of Eric Sand. I'd love to hear what the audience thinks about Lovecraft and his writings and your because my recommendations for where to start with Lovecraft is going to be a lot different than most people, because I'm a bit obsessed, tiny bit obsessed. And so I'd love to hear what the audience would start with and where they started. And also suggestions for what Lukas should read next after the music of Eric Sand.
Let's see what's gonna be. And remember, subscribe to Drawn from Myth.
Yeah, and support also by, for now, by going to denungeherrholm.com and buying art. And yeah.
Is it gonna be for sale, by the way?
This is going to be for sale.
That's good. Buy it. Give us some coffee.
Give us some coffee.
Mine is almost finished.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much for watching, and see you soon.
See you soon.